Story 1. Extremely high egos. I understand feeling good about yourself, but I have not met a man with a high ego who could handle the truth, the word no, and many other underlying problems. Story 2. Stalker behavior occurs when individuals believe you should be interested in them because they see themselves as worthy of your attention. Story 3. Objectifying women and sexualizing everything you do as if you are not a human living a normal life. Story 4. I work at a restaurant, and one of my regular customers gave me his number after he left. I never texted him because I have a boyfriend and am simply not interested. He is friends with the bartender at the restaurant. The bartender later told him I was involved with someone. I ran into him outside of work, and he confronted me for not texting him and lectured me about how I should have been upfront with him. I understand where he's coming from, but he should read the room. Being nice to him is what pays my bills. He'll be back at the restaurant, so can't he just take the hint, move on, and pretend it didn't happen? It was strange and unsettling for him to call me out and scold me weeks later. Story 5. When they start to talk about abused women and joked that the victims could have done more to prevent the abuse while trying to justify the abuser's actions, it is both creepy and infuriating. Story 6. Having an obsession with his idea of a perfect woman often leads to him being disrespectful towards women who don't meet that nearly unattainable standard. He also frequently posts pictures of unusually attractive women in revealing clothing on social media. Story 7. When they tell you that they are going to harm themselves just because you did not do what they wanted. Story 8. When he's watching you from across the room for 5 minutes, and you know he's going to approach you, but he just doesn't do it, you find yourself in a strange stalemate. You're pretending not to notice this guy staring at you from afar. When he finally comes over to talk to you, you get anxious. Story 9. When all they talk about is how pretty you are and do not ask you any questions to get to know you. Story 10. Ignoring social cues. If a woman is shrinking into herself, lowering her tone, and trying to end or redirect the conversation, leave her alone. This is not a slight against autism or actual disorders that make it difficult to read social cues. Story 11. Constantly touching feels like a gesture of friendship. I notice he does it with male friends less frequently, but when it comes to girls, it seems as if he just wants his hand on me. Story 12. Carrying on when you know someone is uncomfortable. As an autistic person, I have met many autistic men who did not realize I was uncomfortable, but they have never made me feel uneasy because I can sense their innocence. It is the awareness that someone else is uncomfortable and continuing to push forward for your own sake, regardless of their feelings. Story 13. When they treat being inappropriate like it's cute or endearing, refuse to accept no for an answer, insist that you are wrong for rejecting them, or attempt to speak on your behalf. Oh, she actually doesn't like. When they become upset or defensive about you being right or doing something better, or when they make inappropriate jokes. Story 14. Looking at a girl who is obviously underage. Just because she has developed breasts does not mean she is an adult. Story 15. Some good, specific answers here, but I would sum it up by saying that creepy individuals are those who engage in creepy actions. Creepy means the same thing in this context as it does elsewhere. It is no different than describing a haunted house as creepy or stating that watching a horror movie alone late at night makes the atmosphere feel unsettling. It refers to something that makes you feel uncomfortable, uneasy, and a little bit afraid. So, yes, to all the responses mentioning behaviors like not accepting a no for an answer, making jokes about sexual assault, touching someone without permission, and objectifying women. These are all behaviors intended to make the individual feel in control of a woman's body and to make her feel powerless. They are inappropriate actions that create discomfort around such individuals. That is what is considered creepy. Story 16. When he can't read facial expressions, body language, tone, and other cues that indicate someone is not interested, he might pursue them desperately. This includes intense staring and over-the-top compliments and declarations even after just meeting for a few minutes. Most women are socialized to be polite. They won't outright tell you to leave when you approach because it's been ingrained that it's not nice, stuck up, or rude to be direct, and also because they fear for their safety. Rejected men often lose control of their emotions and may become verbally abusive. Some even resort to physical violence. Therefore, women usually won't say directly, "Go away, I don't want to talk to you." But there are signs to look for. These include avoiding eye contact, not in a shy or anxious way, maintaining distance, not initiating conversation, or giving very brief replies. Stiff body language and a cold, matter-of-fact tone are also indicative. Many men seem to struggle to understand these cues. Story 17. There is a lack of respect for boundaries. Conversations often revolve around sex, making it difficult to engage without sexual innuendos. Some individuals use pity as a strategy, oversharing personal trauma on a first date, believing that eliciting sympathy will make you want to stay or save them. It becomes apparent when someone is saying what they think you want to hear rather than being genuine. Story 18. From a man with good female friends who serve as each other's dating coaches. Lack of self-awareness, disrespect for boundaries, poor listening skills, inadequate hygiene, unrealistic expectations for intimacy. These issues are the most common, along with one individual who arrived at a date with a license plate reading IMDSHT. Story 19. Being false, manipulative, or sneaky about intentions is problematic. It is important to be honest about what you really want from others. Flirting is not a bad or immoral thing. It is not something to be embarrassed about. If you want to flirt, do so openly. However, do not pretend you are not flirting. Do not say you are not interested in dating or romance when you truly are. Avoid claiming you just want to be friends if you are trying to be intimate with someone. For example, I knew a guy who seemed creepy because he claimed he wasn't interested in anything romantic with me but kept trying to create situations to get closer. He invited me to romantic events, suggested I could spend the night, share a bed, and get really drunk, all while saying he thought I was attractive. Yet, he insisted it was only as a friend and claimed to respect my boundaries. In contrast, my husband was my friend for years before we dated. He simply asked me to hang out without any ulterior motives. He had no hidden intentions. He loved me as a friend and did flirt with me, but it was just a platonic hangout. Later, he asked me out on a date. Story 20. Staring, trying to talk to you even after you express that you don't want to engage, making inappropriate jokes suddenly, and not respecting personal boundaries. Story 21. When you know that the intention of talking to you is to jump into a relationship and push personal boundaries. Story 22. Hungry stares demonstrate a sense of entitlement to your time, physical touch, and attention. This includes not accepting no for an answer and having poor boundaries, even if the behavior is not overtly aggressive. Story 23. Overall, there is a poor understanding of consent, and some individuals appear indifferent to it. Often, predatory individuals are violent and are fully aware of their actions. They may intentionally abuse or harm others. Even after I set a boundary, they continue to cross it. They are unable to read social cues. Even when I move away, give short answers, or pretend not to hear, they persist. They keep dropping unwelcome hints. They engage in stalking behavior. They stare inappropriately and continue to do so. They engage in catcalling. They attempt to touch inappropriately, making it seem accidental. They target younger women or children solely to exploit them. Many do not realize how common this behavior is, and it has devastating consequences. Story 24. I would have to say that constantly staring at someone does not matter if they are attractive. The continuous staring can overshadow that, making you come across as a creep. I felt really uncomfortable at that time, and I also knew he already had a girlfriend. Story 25. Getting too close or touching without being invited, as well as making rude gestures with the fingers and tongue. Story 26. I just received a direct message from someone who mentioned their size in the second word. I have never interacted with them before, and that is definitely creepy. Story 27. It's a vibe more than anything else. Despite what some say, it's not about whether he might be considered classically handsome. That's subjective to a large extent. It can be in the eyes, in the demeanor, in standing a bit too close when it's not necessary. It can be following too closely when it's not needed either. It might be the refusal to accept or honor boundaries the other person sets, whether that's regarding asking them out, coming around too often, or trying to chat them up at work. Ignoring a boundary is a red flag. Don't men get creepy vibes from others sometimes? It's the same thing. It's more of a sixth sense. The scary part is that the worst ones sometimes do not trigger anyone's alarms. Story 28. Looking at you for more than 5 minutes without any reason feels creepy to me. When I see those types of guys, I stare at them and make a strange face to make them feel ashamed. Story 29. Placing a hand on someone's arm or shoulder and leaving it there for too long without any indication of consent can be uncomfortable. It's best not to touch women unless you have an established relationship and explicit permission. Story 30. Not a woman but was raised as one. Staring, not allowing me to leave physically or socially, touching me when I don't really know them or when we aren't close at all. My coworker hugs me frequently, and I'm too awkward to say anything. Being pushy, ranting at me if we're not already familiar. Somehow the group they're ranting about usually applies to me. Choosing to be particularly close to me when there's plenty of space, like someone sitting next to me on the bus when there are many empty seats available. There may be more, but these are the ones that come to mind. I don't understand why people are downvoting this. Story 31. I'm a nice guy. No, you are not. Any comment about feminism that isn't, I truly think feminism is an important thing, is a red flag and an indication of problematic attitudes. It reflects a small-mindedness to blame feminism for anything. Story 32. A combination of poor hygiene, lack of social skills, and unwarranted arrogance. I encountered many of them at the gym I used to attend. Story 33. Just underneath this post on my feed was this post. That is my answer. Story 34. Not respecting boundaries. But honestly, it depends on whether you like him or not. Everything guys do in romantic comedies would be considered creepy if she wasn't interested in him. The biggest difference is being able to recognize when attention is welcome and having the awareness to stop when it isn't, without becoming overly emotional afterwards. Story 35. Gas station attendant here. Showing up to your house unannounced or without notifying you. Taking pictures of your house or you at work without permission. And the more quiet and secretive someone is when they walk into my job instantly triggers my alarms. If they grab a lot of items and suddenly keep their hands in their pockets while half the items are missing from their arms, it raises my suspicion. Story 36. Being overly fixated on the age of young women as a desirable trait in a partner is concerning. It seems some individuals are attracted to women who are barely legal, not necessarily because of youth, but due to the perceived taboo. I have encountered several men who engage in conversations like this. While 18 is legally an adult, why the fixation on age? If the legal age were lowered, it seems they would pursue that as well. Story 37. When he tries to turn every conversation towards sex, even if it is just a lighthearted joke, it makes you feel like that is all you are worth as a woman. It is frustrating. Story 38. Being vague can create a situation where saying no seems unexpected or excessive. Additionally, not accepting no for an answer when you finally say it is also an issue. Story 39. Staring at me like a freak, stalking, and not taking no for an answer. Just trying to flirt or stare at me when you're clearly so much older than I am. Story 40. It can be something that we can't always identify. There was a man who worked at a care home where I also worked, and he always gave me a terrible feeling of dread, even though he did not act overtly creepy around me. However, one of the residents mentioned that he sneaked into her room at night. Unfortunately, this could not be proven as she was a bit senile, though she did have many genuine lucid moments. I often wonder if there was any truth to her claim. Story 41. I mainly observe that individuals with large egos are often regarded as creepy. However, what about the opposite end of the spectrum? What do women think of men with low self-esteem? Story 42. My dad is the creepiest person ever, touching me under the pretense of being a father, making inappropriate jokes in front of me, and engaging in unsettling behavior. Story 43. Not a woman, but here are my top nominations for creepy behavior of men. Stories I heard from coworkers. In no particular order. Showing up in someone's neighborhood demanding a date. only to boast about how nice and charitable you are before starting to grope her after 5 minutes. Going too far with a joke that only you know is a joke. For example, talking about how tiny your penis is for 3 days, then sending a picture of it. Or discussing how you will get naked after 10 minutes on your first date, or insisting repeatedly about sex because you need gas money to go on the date. Being unemployed for over 17 years but claiming that when you were working, you were the boss's #1 man while saying immigrants are taking all the jobs. Asking for nude photos while explaining that your 19-year-old daughter is sleeping next to you or mentioning that you need to hurry up and shave because your daughter is coming home soon. Story 44. I was at a bus stop when someone tried to touch my face, despite my lack of interest. I couldn't get on the bus fast enough. He complimented my skin, and it makes me cringe to think about it. Story 45. That random pat on the shoulder, unnecessary hand on the waist, or a pat on the head, just why? Don't touch me for no reason, especially if we're not that close. It's strange and intrusive. Story 46. Trying to engage in romantic relationships is often viewed as the primary motivation behind interactions with women. It is important to treat women with respect and not as if they owe anything. Treating women as objects is unacceptable. Story 47. When they just stare. I understand when a guy my age thinks I am cute, but they usually look away. However, when they stare, it feels different. Even if we lock eyes, they won't look away. Sometimes they also make strange faces. Story 48. Having poor boundaries, such as flirting with someone your daughter's age or pursuing me while you are married, is unacceptable. Story 49. As a man, I try to understand that even though I may be attractive, men are capable of terrible things. Therefore, I am careful in how and when I engage with a woman. If I ask a woman for her number and she says she isn't interested, I respond, "Cool. I get it. Have a nice day." And then I simply leave her alone and go about my day. Story 50. Being overtly sexual when trying to flirt can be inappropriate. Unless this style of flirting is established beforehand, do not assume that all women appreciate it. I don't even know how the idea of flirting this way originated. Story 51. The alpha male podcast hosts represent men who express hatred towards women due to their own insecurities, believing it grants them some form of power. Story 52. Don't drive by slowly, then do a 3-point turn just to drive by again, and shout how pretty you think I am from the passenger side of your best friend's car. Story 53. The stare. I'm sure many women know the exact one I mean. There's no precise word to describe it. It's more of a feeling. The feeling that immediately tells you that you need to be anywhere else for safety. Story 54. When you need to speed up because you feel unsafe with a man following closely behind you, he may not realize that you are trying to get away, so he continues to follow you. Story 55. Threads like this depress me because I realize I am perfectly fine, and I still will not do anything to actually find a partner. Story 56. There's something that men sometimes do that I have always assumed they think makes them appear non-threatening, but it is, in fact, quite creepy. So you're walking along, and there's a woman walking alone towards you. You don't want to look dangerous, so you try to catch her eye and smile a little to make her feel at ease. I assume you do it to seem friendly, but it really comes off as, this man is walking towards me, staring at me and smiling for no reason. Honestly, just walk normally. You don't need to go out of your way to make us feel safer. Just walk on by. Story 57. I know this one. It's any guy who talks to you but isn't 6 feet tall, rich, and does not look like a model, and says exactly what you expect him to say the moment he meets you. Definitely gives off creepy vibes. Story 58. Being too self-absorbed about body image can be concerning. It's great that you work out, but your entire personality shouldn't revolve around it. This behavior is not necessarily creepy, but it is rather sad. Story 59. To the men who say that it's only creepy if she's not attracted to you, as if they've uncovered some significant double standards and are pointing out hypocrisy, that's the point. Don't harass women who aren't attracted to you. Of course, someone will enjoy attention from someone they are attracted to and are reciprocating with. And of course, it's creepy and unwanted when it's someone you don't find attractive, especially when given many stay-away signals. Have you ever heard of context, situation, and person-appropriate behavior? Do you look at your wife the same way you look at your grandmother? I hope not. Do you talk to your boss the way you talk to your child? The problem with many men who complain about their lack of success with women is that they seem incapable of reading social cues and knowing how to act with different people in different situations. They are particularly bad at understanding when a woman doesn't see them as potential romantic partners if it's not spelled out. Even then, I think some men engage in magical thinking because they desperately want the women they desire to want them. Story 60. I think the core of it is that the men who display these behaviors mentioned in the comments miss the point. Women will always be overpowered physically and are therefore conditioned and taught to be careful. It makes women scared, and rightfully so. This is important in every single second of women's lives, and I believe it's the core of all these examples. No one cares if someone is a creep if they are not a threat to them. Even men defending other men because of good intentions miss this point. It's dangerous, which is why women are hyper-aware. This is not an attack on men. Story 61. Men who disagree with something I have said here on Reddit and then look up my other Reddit comments to twist and use them as part of their argument here find that behavior really creepy. Story 62. I was talking to a guy a few months ago, and within 2 days of our conversation, he managed to insert, "So when can we meet?" into the discussion. When I answered his other questions, he didn't seem interested in what I had to say. The latter isn't creepy by any means, but I felt like this conversation was basically just circling back to needing to meet immediately. I made sure to tell him at the beginning of the conversation that I'd rather continue texting in the app for a bit because of safety. He responded, "Yeah, I totally respect that," but kept pushing for a meeting. It's frustrating to say, but it made me feel like if the relationship had eventually turned physical, he wouldn't have taken no for an answer. Story 63. Just staring with no facial expression and taking no further action instantly makes you appear unsettling, regardless of your intentions. Story 64. The look when they are mentally taking your clothes off gives me the discomfort, especially with men who are significantly older than you. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.